Since we didn't have a lot of time in the morning session to answer questions, so I also worry about I may run over time because I have somebody after my session. I'll start out with the question and answer first because I'm here for you guys. I'll answer your questions and get into my session later. So questions, what did you have in your mind when you come over here for this session? Yes?
So when you were talking about like the EPS liner in a helmet, and what I'm wondering is if you take a Snell helmet that's brand new, sitting in the motorcycle shop, and it sits on the shelf for 2-3 years, do the materials deteriorate just sitting on the shelf, and how much effectiveness does it lose?
The answer is no. The helmet itself, the shell usually made of fiberglass or carbon fiber or just hard plastic, or the liner, which I'm passing around here. I have a cutaway helmet for you to look at the inside of the helmet structure. This is a helmet that's already been tested in the lab. So you can see the destruction of the helmet on the outside shell and the inside foam liner. So you totally understand this is a one-time use safety device. So for the helmet to be sitting in a reasonable condition, like a garage or your house or a store shelf, it doesn't change its protective property. Okay? The only thing that might be different if it's been really old, 10, 15 years in a kind of a semi-hot condition like Texas or Central California, the foam inside for the comfort pads may be crumbling down and will not give you a good snug fitting. And the helmet probably, because of that, going to be one size too big if you bought the right one. If it's a helmet that was built for a different, larger size and have a thick comfort pads, now the helmet is 2 sizes too big. That is a reason you should not wear it. Yes?
What about the one-time drop from handlebar length?
Yes, it happens a lot when your helmet is sitting on the back seat, on the handlebar, on the mirror, or your coffee table, out on the park bench, just right here. Nothing in there. Occasionally, it's okay. You know, just don't let your dog or your toddlers or kids kick around and just bang it around all the time, because the helmet itself has mass, has weight, and will repeatedly hitting on something is going to really hurt the fiberglass different layers. It will delaminate, okay? But when the helmet is damaged, it's because your head is in there. Most likely is when you fall, even when you're walking in the garage, putting away your stuff after a ride, you slip, you fell, you hit the head on a bench or a shelf or a corner of a cabinet or whatever. As long as your head is inside the helmet, when it hits something hard, what happens to the liner is all the bubble that was supposed to cushion your head, when the impact happens, get busted between your head and that impact surface. And it may not be a very severe hit, but it will bust some of these bubbles. So as long as your head is not inside the helmet and hit something hard, the helmet is okay. Yes?
About 25 years ago or so, it seems to me that there was a difference in the energy absorbing and protective ability of a full face helmet versus a flip up or modular helmet. The modern standards of 2025 or even the last 4 or 5 years, last generation, is there any difference in a full face with a fixed lower piece as opposed to a modular flip up helmet in terms of protection?
Good question, because you probably have noticed none of these modular helmets are SNELL certified. Okay? We have certified a modular helmet in size M or L 15 years ago probably, and that manufacturer never made it through to make other sizes certified. So that line of product just never really came into the market. So what happened was the design feature is very convenient. A lot of riders love the design. So the manufacturers have realized if they just certify themselves to the DOT standard, they can sell as many to anybody who would buy because of their brand recognition or comfort or the convenience of the helmet itself or the graphics or the price tag. So they're not coming back to SNELL to certify these helmets again. So partly it was because the rigid test requirement SNELL sets for modular helmets to be tested as a full face helmet. That was answering your question. The chin bar cannot open inadvertently in SNELL testing. It also has to pass the full face, full chin bar impact test. So I'm going to show a picture.
Okay.
Basically, there's a drop mass. When the helmet is fixed on a stand, it gets impacted in, so the chin bar on a full face helmet with an integral chin bar or a flip up chin bar cannot collapse into the chin area by a specified distance. So basically, it has to have a rigidity that is going to protect your face and the jaw area. Okay. So basically, when you're using a modular helmet, you should not expect anything more than DOT level of protection. Any more questions? Okay, I'll start my, okay. Oh, yeah.
Is there a set replacement interval for helmets? In other words, there for quite a while we were hearing like they need to be replaced every 5 years, no matter what, or whatever. Is there a recommended
Yes,
replacement
you're
interval?
asking about the replacement frequencies. We always ask you to read the specific recommendations from the manufacturer when you buy a specific helmet. But our general recommendation is 5 years. Basically, that is a recommendation that we came up with after looking at CHP helmet, California Highway Patrol. They all wear SNELL certified helmets for, who knows, since the 1960s. And they are out there a lot, long hours. And we have collected some, these CHP helmet used from 2-3 years to 4 or 5 years. This is years ago when Dr. George Snively was still managing the lab in California. So what he found out was he couldn't really determine how the helmet was getting enough protection, either was a 5-year use or a 3-year use for the CHP officers. So our decision to make this recommendation is basically if you use your helmet regularly, like a commuter does, then 5-year would be the limit that we would say to keep using that helmet on. Any excessive use, our decision is also, because we really don't know what has changed the protective property of these helmets. And our suspicion is that the wear and tear of the helmet, you washing the inside, and people, also officers, we keep telling them, don't put your helmet on the mirror, don't put on the baton, which usually is in the front side of the wheel or the handlebar, because every time you put your helmet on these hard surfaces, the helmet itself make a small dent from the inside of the helmet to destroy the protective liner. So that spot where the helmet always sits, after a while, is not going to give you that 100% designed capacity to manage those impacts. Okay? All right. I will start my presentation. And if you have any questions with any of the information I present, please stop me as well. As I mentioned in this morning's keynote speech, Snell Foundation is a nonprofit organization set up in 1957 after Pete Snell's fatal accident. In an auto racing accident, his head sustained massive head injury, and his helmet utterly provided no protection. So he died of head injury, and the foundation was set up to promote the first helmet standard in the United States through Helmet Test Lab and evaluation, and recommend those helmets that are certified to the general public for better protection against the brain and head injury. So as end users, you are here, you're thinking, going to the helmet store, what am I getting? You know, what is important? Of course, you can think about the most basics. I need a real helmet that has a liner and a hard shell, and of course, all the graphics and features and the price tags are all going to get you distracted from the number one function in a helmet, and that is, how protective is it? And how can you tell? And basically, we wear a helmet because we believe it will give us protection, and it does. And here is the statistics by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration comparing the fatality rate among the helmeted and unhelmeted riders. 37% effective in reducing fatality and 67% in reduction of head injury, brain injury. And I did show this slide earlier, which is using Snell's current standard as the gold standard, the highest level of impact protection you can get, compared with the other two major standards that people are familiar with. One, the purple one, is DOT for US and Canada, and the next is ECE for European Union countries, and some other countries that start to adopt the ECE standard. So basically, those two mandatory helmet standards are mandatory, means that they are the law of the land. If you don't have the DOT label on a helmet, technically any other helmet, even if it's like an auto racing helmet, that may be more protective than the motorcycle helmet meeting the DOT standard, is technically not legal on public road case, because there are certain aspects, for instance, the peripheral vision on the auto racing helmet meeting Snell standards is not going to be necessarily meeting the DOT standard, because there's a much smaller restricted field of vision allowed for auto racing. They don't require as much peripheral vision. It's by about 15 degrees to the side. So this is another chart to illustrate the level of protection against the impact if you use the ECE level of protection as the baseline. Say that's the 100% you are getting, then how much more the DOT compliant helmets or the Snell helmets are going to provide in terms of impact protection in the smallest size to the largest size. I explained in the morning, Snell does not certify company or model line. Snell certifies the specific sizes of each helmet line by having that size helmet multiple identical helmet onto a specific sized dummy for impact test and all the other tests. Once that is cleared, then that size helmet in that model name is certified. So the smallest dummy weighs 3 kilograms less than the largest dummy, so those helmet materials in the same level of crash is getting less impact energy. That's why the largest head size are not getting as much protection as we would like to protect those heroic size-headed people. But the helmet was going to look like this, okay? So basically, the document is not going to protect anybody. It's just a guideline for honor system people who honor the honor system to do everything by the books. Manufacturers are supposed to run their own test lab or hire an outside lab to do the test by this DOT standard before they put a label DOT standard and their helmet model name and the company name on the back of the helmet. The label requirement is quite new. It's the newest requirement in the change of the DOT standard. Before this change, anything goes, like you can just have 3 letters, DOT on the back, and that was good enough. People say that's do my own thing or something like that to get away in a lawsuit in California when police give them a ticket. They say, I certified my helmet. Proof. How do you prove? It doesn't. So basically, Snell is really doing all these work through a lot of testing. All the helmets that carry a Snell name has to go through a comprehensive testing for certification to prove that in hot, cold, room temperature, wet condition, multiple impacts, visual, peripheral vision, face shield, chin bar, strap, everything has to be tested, and then everything had to pass. Then it's certified. So I'm passing out some, along with that helmet liner, there's a face shield. Do you see that, those 3 holes in there? That is an evidence of a failed face shield penetration test. Okay, when a fast-moving car kick up some pebbles, rocks, and fly in the face, that face shield is not going to help preventing a crash or possible serious injury. So we do a lot of testing, and then we recommend those that pass the certification test to everybody through our website. You go to the Snell website, and there's a page, Certified Helmet. You click on that, it will have a search bar if you're looking for a specific model or helmet, a company name, or if you don't know, you can just click on the different standard for auto racing or motorcycling and other activities. Like all the NASCAR drivers, they wear Snell certified helmets. So their standard is called SA, Special Application, and the sticker is a different color. So I just want to go back to some old history pictures. That is one of the Snell old lab photo. Dr. George Snively is the one on the bottom. He's the original founder, and he was a member, a board member of the SCCA, Sports Car Club of America. And when the first standard was issued in 1959 to evaluate auto racing helmets and recommend it to the auto racers, there was non-existence, anything to do with helmet testing or helmet standard in the United States. So he's the pioneer. And this is Dr. George Snively in a later lab, was doing a drop test here. You can see all the instrumentation is all on the rack, and you got an HP Polaroid photo to take the impact energy trace. It's very much at the time the state of the art. This is what the lab looked like now. We have a robot actually telling the dummy where the line should be drawn on a specific size helmet so that the impact test can be done by the test technician on these helmets. Because there are so many different standards and different dummy sizes, it can often lead to human error to draw the line somewhere else. So with the computerized function here, all the technician has to do is like a motorcycle helmet, medium size, and line it up, and the computer will zoom in and draw the line exactly where it should be. So this is a drop tower where I played a video earlier for a linear direct impact. On the floor are different anvils. You got the roll bar for auto racing, you got the dome-shaped hemispherical anvil, the flat anvil. There's on the stand is an edge anvil for like guardrails, right? So those are some of, except the roll bar, all the others apply to for motorcycling impact. On the other side is the inside of this helmet. The metal head is the dummy. Inside the dummy, there is a linear accelerometer that's going to pick up the sensor. It's the sensor that pick up the peak G-force. That when the impact happens, the peak G-force is going to be going through the helmet and collected by the sensor and sent to the computer. And that's how we know whether a helmet is a pass or a fail. And I mentioned the V-gate, this one here. The red box there and this little black tab go through the middle of it, slides down. The black tab is going to cut off the laser in this box. So we know in 1 centimeter distance how, in that distance, how much time it cut off the laser beam. So we know the time, we know the mass, so we can do all the physics calculation to make sure that each impact is giving enough crash energy shock to the helmeted dummy, and then what comes to the computer from the other side is how much damage is doing. And we have a cutoff line, like I mentioned in the morning. Snell standards, the highest of all impact is no more than 275. The lowest one, I believe, is about 243. And that is the cutoff line. Anything more than that, even for 1 G, it's a failure. So DOT allows 400. And the difference in the impact severity and the low threshold translate into the 40 to 80% more protection in different sizes of Snell helmets versus the DOT. This is a test apparatus for testing the straps. Basically, there are 2 rods here and here. It's like your jawbone, and the strap goes under it, and there are big mass here and here. In first, it elongates, take out all the slacks, and then the big heavy thing here, I think it was 38 kilograms, is going to be dropped off a specific distance to have a yank. And then if the measurement, there's a linear measurement of how long the strap elongated, or whether the strap anchor point is the rivets came out, or the strap buckle came loose, or the sewing came apart. All of this could be cause of rejection. And that is the nasty penetration test. If you have that helmet in there, you look at the backside, there is a tiny hole. That is the result of this penetration test. this very spiky, hard, metal, this whole carriage goes up like to the second floor, and they come down in a whoosh sound, very scary when you're in the lab. And it spikes on the helmet to make sure any sharp projected parts on the impact is not going to penetrate the outside shell and going all the way through the foam to make any contact with the test dummy. And this part can be put into this post so the helmet can be turned sideways like on a pillow, and it can rotate so you can actually test this helmet on other surfaces. This is the chin bar test. You can take a look here. So this chin bar has a fixture here, a cradled, so the helmet is fastened on here by those straps, so it's not going to move. And this is a rail going up with a mass that coming down, and here is the velocity gate. There's also a black bar on that to measure how fast this mass is coming down just before hitting the chin bar. This is the 0 position. And once it comes down and reach the velocity that the standard is calling for, then the computer will pick up how much distance from the 0 point before impact to where the helmet chin bar deflects downwards because that impact. And if it passes a specific distance, it's a rejection. So modular helmet, like the integral chin bar full haze helmet, will be subject to the same test. Yes?
Am I correct that the chin bar does not have any EPS in it?
No, it's not for an impact absorption test like the crown of the head. This is strictly a rigidity test. So it doesn't intrude. If somebody crash on a face or you hit on the side, then you land on your face, it gives you some level of facial chin area protection.
Is there any difference in the construction of that chin guard in terms of laminations or strength or reinforcing in there as opposed to the top of the shell?
There is no other test in this designed mechanism.
Compositionally, in the chin bar, is it exactly the same composition as the outer shell?
You are talking about the design to make this part very strict. We do not specify in any of the standard on material use or design features. We are strictly testing for the performance. We're just saying we're checking how much it claps in here. You each have your own creative ideas or material to figure out how you want to do it. We never specify design limitations or regulations. Yeah. Peripheral vision is checked here for specific size, so it's important for you to understand the way we test these helmets is going to give you the most protection when the helmet fits you. So if you happen to be wearing a helmet that's too big or a young child is using an adult helmet, they tend to sit back inside the helmet and will not really have this level of peripheral vision, okay? So this is on the assumptions the rider is wearing the right size on them to benefit from the helmet design. So the other side is doing the air rifle penetration test of the face shield. It gets shot 3 times and none of them should penetrate inside the helmet. And you see those lights on there, these are instrument to cast a shadow on the frame down, so when the pallet passes through, it can record the speed it goes through, so that's how we know whether the pallet is going at the velocity that we intended for. So that is a failure. It takes a lot of impact tests, and these tests are really very damaging to the instrument, and especially when the helmet is bad. I don't know if you can see some cuts and bruises and dents on the dummies over time, and on the bottom here, these are out of service drop arms. That's the part of the hardware that hoists the helmet up along with the dummy. And when the impact happens, this arm like this gets flexed, right? So you do impact so many times, you get metal fatigue, and there's any crack in there, then it's junk, because it will absorb more impact than a rigid drop arm. So basically, Snell's function as a nonprofit is really do the work before any, to provide that information to public so you don't have to guess which helmet can protect you better. And we do it by really testing and putting out the certification updates every day on our website. And so you can see by name and size which helmets are certified on good standing, but if any helmets fail the random sample test later, which we also do by the production quantity, every 1 out of 2,000 helmets are bought back from the stores. So we can really looking over their shoulder, say, not that you send us the good helmets in the beginning, we're actually testing randomly throughout the year, throughout the certification 5 years, and they know we are checking on them. So any failure could lead to a decertification and public acknowledgement that, hey, these guys, this size helmet as of which day is decertified. And we will ask immediately after the decertification or the failed data, email them, stop shipment of this helmet today. And they can decide what they want to do. And we have always kept an archive sample. When the first round certification happened, they sent at least 6 or 7 identical helmets. So we test 1 hot, 1 cold, 1 rank, 1 room temperature, and 1 now with the new standard, 2 more for rotational acceleration. So if everything passed, we have 1 more that's intact, brand new helmet, just like all the others that's been destroyed to prove that they are good in the library. So if any of the following up random sample helmet fails, we don't have to believe their story that helmet never changed. We have an archive, can compare with the failed helmets later and say, hey, let's figure out what went wrong and what do they want to do. So it's a very comprehensive way to really back up our recommendation to the public, and we can be really feel peace of mind that all these helmets that has a Snell name on there would deliver the level of protection that the standard requires. And I think this is the impact drop that I showed earlier. See how it punches through? And this Hemi is actually very tough. And the reason the ECE standard is not as good as DOT is because DOT does require impact on the hemispherical anvil like this one, not in ECE. ECE only tests on flat and curbstone. So it's not like enough teeth in that standard to demand more protection. So this is the current DNR Snell's label in all the new helmets that's produced since late last year. Some of them should be in the market now, but the 2020 standard labeled helmet are still widely available. The difference is every time we try to raise the bar, and this time all the 2025 labeled helmet had to gone through 2 more samples in the certification test round to pass the rotational force check. Basically, somebody asked a question about, oh, what about the glancing fall, right? Like scraping the road surface. When we test the traditional way, like 2020 and before, it's the linear impact. You saw the video before. This one is a wireless dummy with 3 sensors, X, Y, and Z, and the 3 gyros to measure the rotational, which means the 360 degree, whichever way it's turning while it's impacting, and how the rotational acceleration is going to do to this dummy. So this is the first time in all the Snell certified certification standard and testing. We have not introduced this type of testing to any other helmet standard. This is what it really looked like. You got a wireless dummy on a slanting 45-degree angle. So when it hits, it will always tumble. So when it tumbles, then the 3 gyros and 3 accelerometers are going to pick up how the helmet dummy senses the rotation. So it's not a direct hit, but it's a glancing blow. And on the stand, that is a full face helmet prepared to test. Basically, those knobs on there help balancing the helmet, and it's like a cradle. It comes down along the rail, and the cradle kind of past the impact point, and the helmet start to tumble. That's why we got all the cushions around it to protect the instrument. So inside is very sophisticated. You may not believe it took almost 20 years for basic research. The first research meeting on this subject, I remember, was publication 1995 in a Lyon, France international conference, specifically talk about the necessity of adding another type of impact test that needs to be looked at, and how we test it, what kind of instrument can be built to measure this kind of rotational force accurately. Otherwise, you're just like want to tell how long something is using a spaghetti, right? How long is this? Well, let's see. It's a little stretchy here. So it's accumulation of 20 years work up to this point. So I will give you a view of this test. It right away kind of there's a sandpaper, if you notice, on the anvil, so that we know it's a fresh sandpaper, so it gives a little bit grip and friction, so it's always going to get the same test environment. So we're not, testing same helmet on the stand, and as the anvil wears down, it's not as slippery as last month or next year, right? So this is pretty much an agreed upon test protocol now for all oblique impact test setup. So where do we sit? As I talk about Snell certified helmets are the most protective motorcycle gear. The left highest bar all the way to the ceiling on this is the Formula One, F1 helmet level of protection. And then next to it is the Snell motorcycle helmet standard protection against impact. And then middle is DOT, and ECE, and the last is the US bicycle helmet standard. So there you go. You see how we slowly from the 1960s and 70s, basically incrementally increased the impact protection level way past all the other standard. And this is as much as we can push now for motorcycle riders to get the most protection. And the hemispherical anvil, like I mentioned, was very punishing. And one of the study that was published by Snell, this is when 2010 standard was out. We have a lot of helmets that are Snell certified and some are DOT only certified. And we drop these helmets, like I say, you know, DOT require the helmet test at about 5.5 meter per second velocity. And we started the impact at below DOT, 3 meters per second, really kind of slow, gentle fall, relatively speaking. But this show you is as we increase the velocity, basically how hard you're hitting the helmet, from 3 meters per second to 5, 7 to 8 meters per second, that's very close to the Snell level. You can see how DOT only helmet start to skyrocket to give a very high peak G reading, means it's failing. And Snell certified helmets is the blue line that keeps the peak G level low. Almost identical if it's a gentle crash, because the two line basically it merged, and then on the more severe impacts, the two types of helmets start to perform differently and demonstrated by these test numbers. So I don't know if any of you still remember some of the earlier talk in the community about DOT only helmets are softer, is better, as if Snell helmet has some shortcoming when you are going to crash on a regular ride to the grocery store. The fact is here, there's no difference. And the fact is also people should think, if you just have a Snell certified helmets and don't have the DOT, it's not legal. So all helmets that has Snell certification also have DOT already. And we don't do that part of testing. It's the manufacturer's job, because DOT doesn't have a lab. It's the manufacturer's self-certifying requirement to, before they apply DOT label on their own helmets, and their responsibility is to keep their evidence that their helmets truly meet DOT. And one day if somehow DOT's spot checking on them produced some doubts, they better produce some evidence, okay? So this picture was taken after this gentleman crashed on the exit where Snell Lab was. And he happened to be a friend of our office manager at the time. So Bonnie told me, oh, my friend crashed off Auburn, swiped by this big truck. And so he didn't have head injury, even though his helmet was pretty badly damaged. You can see the skid marks on there. His hand was injured, and he came out okay. So this was on his visit to our lab. He was trying to help me to educate the California riders. Don't wear the beanie size helmet. Wear a real one. Your outcome can be very different on the crash ending side. So this is my favorite slide to see what work the helmet has done to protect the rider. And that's why I brought the cut in half helmet for you to feel the foam is really soggy on the site where it was impacted, because all the firm bubble has been busted out. You know, have you ever played with the packing material that come with a lot of bubbles? You press hard and it pop, right? That's what the head does to the helmet when crash happens. It pops hundreds of those bubbles, and it takes the force to pop those bubbles. And the force went to pop the bubbles before your head comes to a full stop as it goes. So the good news is usually because there's still more cushion and there's more room for the helmets to collapse more. When the bad news happened, it was when the helmet didn't build enough capacity to absorb more energy, or there's more bubbles to be popped, and the helmet already popped all the bubbles and come to a full stop when the level of the impact is still high enough to cause injury, okay? So I mentioned about the thumb tag earlier. So when the force is there, the smaller the contact point, the more concentrated is the energy. So when the shell and the liner on the crash spread out an impact onto a rock or anything that is not flat, even if it's a flat, the contact point is still relatively small. So you can spread it out to a much larger area so your head is on the thumb tag side, not on the wall side. This is what the shell does to give the head and the brain more space to absorb that impact. Okay, fit is what you can do personally to really improve the level of protection. Because all the work that we have done in the lab and all that is really in collaboration with the manufacturer to build in the maximum level of protection that technology and material selection can really facilitate that piece of gear. But that is just built by the standard head form or whatever that manufacturer wants to build. The inside of the helmet is what matters to you when it comes to fitting. So everybody's head is different slightly in shape, even if you have the same circumference head sizes. So make sure always don't buy helmet by mail order, online order. Always go in person. Wear the helmet on your head. Don't be distracted by the graphics or any other features. Make sure the fitting is really what you want. It takes at least 5 to 10 minutes. Just wear the helmet, walk around the store. Find out the snug helmet is not really giving you any hard pressure point. So your 2-hour ride is not going to give you a headache or you feel so bad and like, oh, I'm better off, just take this thing off, okay? Because if you don't do that, if the helmet is too big, what happens is after 3 months, 6 months, the soft pads for the cushion really wears down and the helmet is going to be one size too big. And another tip for you is when they sell from extra, extra large to extra, extra, triple XL, double XL, XL, L, medium, small, extra small, right? Most companies do not make a unique size outside shell and inside liner for each of these commercial sizes. They always combine one with another. And one of the reasons some helmets are more expensive is because they really don't share. So their small is a small shell and small foam liner. Their medium is a median with a median shell and median liner. They're not mixing, and the small size guy is really just getting the double thickness of the foam inside, and the protective liner and shell are the same as the size up, medium, okay? So if you're wearing XL, you might be wearing a double XL or even triple XL. That's how they can reduce production and research money, because they're really just the whole line. They only have 2 or maybe maximum 3 unique shell and liner combinations. So those helmets tend to wear down quickly, and you will find these helmets very noisy. after a while because there's a lot of gap. So it's like a tunnel of wind going, right? So those are the things you need to do for yourself to get better protection. Chin strap, always tight. Allow only 2 fingers, no more than 2 fingers. Otherwise, the helmet can move too much and even roll off. So these are the things, some of them I mentioned already. I think don't use anything other than soap to clean the inside. And never put your helmet next to the hot muffler because it can damage the foam liner and you don't even know it. I mentioned not to rest the helmet on anything but maybe hanging it by the chin strap, not on the mirror. This is a minor impact. You can't see from the outside. I brought that helmet to show you the cutoff so you can see the damage. This is what a muffler can do to the inside of your liner. It's as hard as a rock and eat away almost half an inch off the foam, and you wouldn't know. So our mission is testing and let everybody know what we recommend. Your job is to find the best fitting for you personally and strap on every time. And if for some reason you cannot or will not wear a Snell certified helmet, please choose a reputable company. Not only the DOT only standard is a much lower standard, you have a good reason to worry whether just any helmet out there truly meet DOT or not can be a problem. That is because it's a self-certifying standard. There's no watchdogs at the get-go before they put the label on and sell it in the market. They do 35 to 40 helmet check at DOT NHTSA site. You can look at those results. So put on the best helmet that you can find and wear it, and don't worry about all these risks that we all know involved in motorcycling because we love doing it. Just enjoy. For more information, call Snell. We always have a human being, not an answer machine, because every call and answer to that question can be life-saving. And we have Twitter, X page, and Facebook. And hopefully I can get some podcasts done in the near future that I will distribute to Snell ambassadors. With all the information, people just, have so much screen time. I think it's good to have audio materials. And I'll ask you to respond if you're interested in getting some feedback from me every once in a while. I'll maybe send out 1 or 2 emails out if anything pertinent to motorcyclists that is happening at Snell. And that's it. Even the best Snell certified helmets may not be enough. So exercise your best judgment and do your training and be aware of all the cars and all the other motorcyclists and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Hong.
I have over here, the helmet I'm wearing today is not, I did not know this until just now. It is not Snell certified. It is a helmet that has a drop-down sun shield. Is that why does Snell not, because of that gap in there that the sun shield?
We don't discriminate any helmet by design. Any helmet that comes to Snell for testing is totally voluntary by the helmet manufacturers first. So when they come to Snell, it's because they already did their homework. When they design it, build the prototype, they're already shooting for that higher standard. When you have a helmet that only has DOT, when they design it, they are shooting for DOT level. And if they're a good, reputable company, they sincerely do their work, make sure it does meet DOT. The specific design you mentioned is called the drop-down shade visor, has a good reason why it's not Snell. It's because they delegate about 3.5 millimeters gap between the foam and the shell for the storage of the lens and not scratched, so it comes in and out. But that space could pack a lot of foam, right? So when they carve away that much foam for that lens to be there, it's impossible for them to meet Snell certified standard impact requirement because they're taking away materials in the critical area. And by design that way, we will test the most vulnerable spot. And for that design to be Snell, they probably would have to increase at least 2 millimeters more bulk to pack in more materials. Then the helmet is probably not sellable.
So none of those that you're aware of, none of them have ever been Snell approved that have a drop-down shield?
I think Scorpion many years ago had one that was Snell certified, and then they may be the first one to come out with that design, and then other people caught on. That was a good design, so they designed it, but they started to do just the DOT because they noticed that the bulkiness is not a good selling point, especially for the large size helmets.
Yeah, I got a big, what'd you say, enormous, gigantic?
Yes,
And it is a
heroic size. Yeah.
It's a Scorpion helmet, and it does not, it's just DOT.
Yeah, and you know, people may say, you know, Snell helmets are expensive. Actually, they are all price point and style. They are open face Snell certified helmets. They are more full face though, right? But there are helmets that are certified to Snell is priced around 200, 250. But there are a lot more that's 4, 5, 6, or even more expensive. But guess what? These are usually helmets that have unique shell and liner. So even have like internal oval, round. So they spend more money on the comfort level. And also, you may not know, the most expensive part of all the cost is the graphics. Very pretty graphics cost a lot of money because they have to have very nice, delicate hand to get all the design onto the curved, you know, surface and perfectly lined and then painted. It's very costly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Snell, like I said, call me. Call the Snell office, email. I'll be glad to answer any more questions later today or in the future. Thank you.